Hello everyone, appreciate you tuning in once again to some Truth and Accountability. My name is Dr. Patrick Huff, and we're going to be going over today the release of the accountability ratings that took place earlier this week, and laid out exactly who made it and who didn't make it in our schools in relationship to their outcomes on the tests last year. We've had teachers go back to work this past week in their professional development, getting ready for the students to show up, and by the time you're watching this video, the students are in class, and we want to wish everyone good luck this year as they begin the new school year. So good luck, and we hope things go well. TEA, as I said, came out with their report that listed approximately 93.7% of the schools did well last year. They received an acceptable rating of met standards, and they did fine. 5.5% of the schools, however, did not, according to TEA, and they fell into the needs improvement category. So what we're going to go over with you today is exactly what does that mean that 5.5% needs improvement, and where did that figure come from? So I want to go over with you what happened back in 2013 that determined the 5.5%, or the 5%, the bottom 5%. They came to be known as priority schools. These are the schools that TEA is going to make a priority to bring them up to speed in their outcomes on the test. In 2013, Commissioner Williams submitted his waiver application to the U.S. Department of Education that at that time was being run by Arnie Duncan. In that application, he listed, and I'll show you the document here, as priority schools. The figure for that is somewhat misleading, because if you use logic in determining the outcomes on the test and you lay them out on a chart, even if you had all schools making 90% to 100 on the test, there would be a bottom 5%. So there's always going to be a bottom 5%. Now, in 2013, when the Texas Education Agency began applying this rule, they had a difficulty in how were they going to determine what the 5% was. And so there was a formula for figuring that out. But I just want to show you the document that shows in the waiver that we are going to have a priority percentage of schools, which will be the bottom 5%. And in another chart I'm going to show you, I'll show you where we go from 2013, 2014, and 15, and then today, and we see a gradual decrease in the percentages. In other words, we started off fairly high, 9%, and we went down each year until now we've got 5.5%. So we're getting into that category of the bottom 5% priority schools that were required to be done through what Commissioner Williams wrote in the waiver application. Now, what did the waiver application waive? It waived the fact that 100% of the students would not have to be proficient on the test, which is what was called for in No Child Left Behind. So through that waiver, all schools got waived from that requirement. This happened all over the country. And we're going to go over in coming weeks exactly what that meant when states received the waiver. But for now, let's just concentrate on the ratings that came out. I'm going to show you a school report card from 2013. This is the first year that this was put into play. And we went under the index system on the school report card. And I showed you that last week when I was talking about the number of students, the situation in our Title I schools where they were being discriminated against based upon 3 demographic areas that I listed last week, and you can go back and take a look at that. But you saw the 4 indexes, or indices as they can be called, and in Index 1, that is the outcomes on the test. In other words, what percentage of your students pass the test? And we have, at that time in 2013, only 50% were required. The Index 1 bar, you can see on the report card that I'm showing, was set at 50%. But they also had to pass Index 1, Index 2, 3, and 4. They had to pass them all. And a lot of schools had difficulty with that. And so we saw a high number of schools that were thrown into the bottom category of priority schools. Now, this was too high according to the waiver, and so something had to be done. The next year, we saw the bar raised to 55%. And they even had more difficulty with that. So we see a tinkering with the formula, manipulation of the numbers, and we're trying to get the acceptable number of 5%. The next year, in 2015, the bar was raised to 60%, but they made a change. They said that schools had to pass Index 1 or Index 2, and then they had to pass 3 and 4. And I'll show you a report card that indicates that. Now, with that in mind, the numbers went down, and we were getting more to that 5% number. So for 2016, we kept the formula the same. Schools were allowed to adjust to it, and we came up with the 5.5%. So we're getting more in line with what the waiver application asked all schools to comply with, and schools are beginning to adjust to that. But once again, these are priority schools that we're always going to have no matter what the outcomes are on the test, because there's always going to be a bottom 5%. Now, I want to show you one more thing, and that is the federal document that said that all states, and this is what Texas went by, had to establish a bottom 5%. And so I'm going to show you that now. And with that document, we can see that all of this came from the federal government, because all of it is being applied to the Title I schools. Now, why is it just being applied to the Title I schools? Because that's where the money is. That's what the federal government helps with their grants and their funding of the different programs that go into the schools that have the percentages of social economic students that bring them into the Title I program. So what the government pays for, the government controls. And what the federal government pays for, the federal government controls. And this is why they're dictating that. Now, I want to leave you with this one point. If a teacher walked into her classroom and she said to the classroom, 95% of you this year are going to pass, but I'm sorry, 5% of you are going to fail. Would that be acceptable? Would parents accept that? I don't think they would. Let's start getting real with school accountability. And let's start determining what path we're going to follow as we move forward with our education system. I'm Dr. Patrick Huff, and I'll see you next week.